And we are going live, and there we are. Hey, hey, happy Friday and Il Natale della Pasta, huh? We want to welcome you on a very special edition of the HLS Ask Me Anything for Microsoft Teams on World of Pasta Day. And so Michael, we want to welcome you. So welcome. You can eat your pasta while you watch. So I want to welcome everybody. It is World Pasta Day, by the way. So we want to thank you all for joining us today. We have a great lineup. We have some, running in the background. I hear my own voice. That's not good. Okay, there we go. So we want to thank you all for joining. We have a great lineup. We have some great folks. This is your chance to ask anything about Microsoft Teams. But I want to kick off by introducing my fellow hosts for the day. First up, we have and there she is. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sam Brown. I'm a Teams technical specialist with Mike. And I'm in the New York office, and I'm here to answer your questions. I'm going to be moderating, going through some of the content.
And next up,
Pete Anello. I'm also a Teams technical specialist with Mike and Sam.
And last but not least, because her mom is watching today.
My name is Allison Rodevel, and I am a customer success manager with our Microsoft Teams product within our healthcare life sciences practice based in New York, and I work predominantly with our pharmaceutical and healthcare customers. All
right, so that's everybody for today. Again, we want to thank you for tuning in. So we have a few slides for housekeeping. Again, this is the third in our series of 3 AMAs. Depending on the response and request, we may do more down the road, but we have some other content getting teed up shortly. So let's go ahead and advance the slide, Sam.
Yeah.
All righty. So first up, today, as all of our sessions have been, is brought to you by Logitech Meetup, because they have supplied the Logitech Meetup camera to give us great video. And you can go to the next one, the Logitech Meetup. It's a huddle room solution, part of their whole suite of solutions for various size rooms. And we're very appreciative to Logitech for having provided that equipment, as well as, and we're going to be integrating this in shortly in the next couple of weeks into these sessions, our Lenovo Teams Meeting Room Hub. But we can keep going. So a couple of things just to go ahead and encourage everybody. Number one, look, we want you to ask questions, especially this is an AMA, right? So if you have questions about Microsoft Teams, now's the time to ask in this session. Bring them out. We're going to address them live. We'll provide follow-up if needed. But, you know, ask. Number two, all the questions are moderated, just so you understand that. So the questions will come into us in a private new window. Our expert team of moderators will then preview those questions. They may respond to you in real time behind the scenes, so we can do some back and forth. Publish when they're published, that'll show to everybody, and then other people can comment, answer questions as well. But that's how we'll tee them up. So, you know, ask your questions. What we'll do is tee them up, and then during logical breaks, we'll post those. Or, you know, since this is an AMA, once we get to the open Q&A, which is most of today, we'll just take them as we go. Next, we love to know where, that's fine. But we love to know where you're coming from. So give us a shout out. You know, feel free to let us know. There we go. Feel free to give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching from, what state, city, which country. We reach a worldwide audience. We love to hear from everybody, various places that they're watching from. And so let us know. And finally, yes, today's session will be recorded. It's being recorded as we speak. So at the conclusion of today's session, at some point tonight or this afternoon, I'll take the recording, I'll take the links, I'll take the deck that we're going to show today real briefly. I'll put all that up in a post, and you can find it as always at our blog at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. All right, last but not least, let's go on to the Q&A panel. If you're not seeing the Q&A panel on your right-hand side, you can go up to the right-hand corner. You'll see a little dialog box with a question mark. Click it, and it will open that. Go to the next slide. You're probably, though, already seeing it. This is what that looks like. So you can post your questions. Feel free to add your name or not. You can post anonymously. It's up to you. We don't mind either way. We love to hear your questions, as I said. So, fire away. This is a Fire Away Friday, so let them rip, and we can't wait to hear from you. And next, I believe, so I'm going to send live, and we are going to begin real briefly or quickly today's little intro presentation, and take it away.
All right, great. So again, this is Sam. I'm a Teams technical specialist. Just want to run through the agenda with you. Again, like Mike said, just want to give you a little bit of content, but we really want this to be about you today. So feel free to ask questions. So agenda of what we're going to go over is why Teams adoption and change management, a little bit about the champions network that we have to develop in order to get the best adoption possible, training for the end users, resistance management, which I'm sure we all encounter, some best practices around rewards and recognition, some adoption plan and success metrics, and some communication and awareness tips. And then at the end, we have a slide with just resources to learn more, and we'll also be posting multiple resources within the chat itself. So first things first, this is just talking about how we want to basically make sure that Teams is customized and extended to your end users. We want them to have a really personalized experience where all of the apps that they're using for every single part of their workday is all in one hub, and we want it to be very, very simple to use. So that is how we see Microsoft Teams, is this interface, the modern workplace that your end users deserve. So the question becomes, okay, how do we get there, right? And adoption and change management, as we have seen, is absolutely key because, yes, this is an awesome tool, and we've discussed that on the other AMAs, exactly how to implement it, but really the outcomes can only be achieved if your end users buy in and actually use the technology and use it as intended. So we know that the human factors determining like the ROI here are how quickly can people get adopted, how quickly are people up and running, how many employees are demonstrating this buy-in, and then how well are they performing compared to the level expected in the design of the change. So we'll go through each piece of this with you today. So the first piece, we really want to focus on the people. So this, we tend to focus on the actual process itself, right? But really, we have to start with champions. So research has shown that learning from coworkers is actually the most effective and useful method to learn a new technology. If you get the people bought in, then you're going to have a lot of enthusiasm. You're going to build influence circles and be able to achieve new working methods. So champions are probably the very, very first step in the adoption process, and they're able to continuously provide feedback to the project team and the sponsors. So these are kind of the roles, and one of them is champion, but first, in order to have a successful adoption, definitely need executive, IT, and business sponsors bought in. We need a project team that's actually going to design the process, define the success metrics, and be able to carry it out. And then we also need early adopters who are going to be the first ones to implement the change, start using the product. The champions are kind of this next level. They're really excited about the product. They're ready to convert people that are dissenting or have dissenting views to actually be able to latch on. And so these are really the key 4 roles. And if you take that into the training, you absolutely, what we've found, have to target specific audiences and align the training throughout the process. So whether it's the core team that we talked about or just the IT team in general, different business groups, all of this has to be aligned and specified from the very beginning for it to really take hold. So We definitely encourage not like a complete rip and replace, but definitely a crawl, walk, run type of method. And these are just examples of things that we use to build capability for all end users, because everyone learns differently, right? So we have methods for on-site training that Microsoft can help you with, virtual training as well, similar to these webcasts that we're doing today, self-help resources, just like the links we're going to send within this Q&A, and definitely live support from Microsoft, as well as a huge champions network of Microsoft end users all over the world that are here and able to answer questions as peers alongside you. So this is the key, right? We know that resistance is going to come, and resistance is normal. It happens every single time a change is made, and everyone is going to have to anticipate this, right? Because people don't have a lot of time, and users are really, really comfortable with the way that they've been doing things for a long period of time, and change is very hard. So I think these are a list of the common ones that we have seen in terms of resistance, and a lot of times it's just easing the fear of the end user around the change. And so with that, we just want to go over a few management techniques in terms of resistance. So obviously empathy, we practice that every day with our customers, making sure to listen first, not just jump to the solution, understand the use case and understand what they're actually going through on the day-to-day. We recommend focusing on the what and letting go of exactly the how, because if you get to the why behind it first, then you're actually able to make improvements long term. Removing any barriers, whether that be technical barriers or just kind of mental blockers around what's preventing them from adopting the technology. Making it really clear and simple for the end users around what exactly how exactly this is going to help improve their day-to-day. Creating hope and finding motivators, and that's again something that the champions can help with. And then showing benefits in a real and tangible way to show exactly how it's going to affect the end users. Personal appeals are always good, and then the strongest dissenters are the ones that you want to make sure to engage with, and again, a place to leverage your champions. So with that being said, just a quick introduction on the things that we usually see, but we actually have a special guest on the call. We have Allison Rodeville, and she's actually going to go through the next step. She is on the customer success side, so she actually is responsible for adoption metrics, and she's seen it all. So with that, Allison, I'll let you continue on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sam. So as Sam mentioned, I'm part of our customer success team, which is the arm of Microsoft responsible for exactly what we're titled as, customer success. So understanding how we can help our customers really close that gap between when they start to begin using one of our technologies to a point of seeing business value. So one of the things that, just to piggyback off of Sam's initial points about managing resistance and driving a strong champions program, really motivating the folks to participate in this change that you're trying to make within your organization. We see some best practices around rewards and recognition. So we want to make sure we're really motivating the folks who are engaging and really taking part in spearheading that change to promote a high performance culture. And then also that close link between what they're actually doing to exhibit the change and recognizing them and rewarding them for making that change early and often. So the third, really making sure we're doing it in a timely fashion. So if you have early adopters, calling them out right away and maybe using it in some sort of a innovation showcase or presentation roadshow so that you can call out those early successes to motivate the remainder of the folks trying to make the change. And then making sure that the rewards that you're providing are valued and meaningful to your organization. You want to make sure that if they're more incentivized by manager recognition versus a free giveaway, that you understand your audience and you speak to that that motivation. At the same time, you want to be fair and make sure you're applying standards consistently. If it's some sort of a giveaway or you're providing recognition to one champion and not another, you want to make sure you're doing it consistently and fair and transparently to make sure that the folks who are really making the effort to make the change feel like their efforts are being recognized. And then it can really just be a simple recognition as far as giving a kudos or providing some sort of a giveaway. It doesn't have to be something complex or frequent. It could just be simple and make sure that the users understand what they're aiming for. So the next slide really outlines a sample of what a rewards and recognition model might look like within your organization. We're not looking to recreate the wheel here. This is something that I've used with a number of customers to motivate their champions network, or you can nominate the most active champion, or you could go into the larger organization and nominate the most active business area. This also links into some great active usage metrics that you might be tracking to understand how adoption is cycling through your organization and how sticky the change you're trying to make is landing within your organization. You can go to the next slide. And then what makes a good adoption plan? I know Sam talked a lot about a couple of our pillars so far around the Champions Network and various aspects, but really what drives a good adoption plan is a clear definition of success, first of all. So we want to know what we're aiming for as we create that plan for success. Secondary, making sure that it's based on real scenarios and real workflows within your organization so that it will provide that business value and tangible value to your end users. Secondarily, if there's any parallel project plans, and especially as it pertains to adoption, when we think about deployment and adoption together, they're often very intertwined. So you want to make sure that you're planning your adoption plan at the right timing and in parallel to any other projects that might overlap and intertwine with landing that change. Making sure you're tracking the success criteria, so understanding not only the metrics that go along with adoption and the active usage, but secondarily, you also have the opportunity to reach out throughout the adoption and change management to understand how the change is landing with users. So putting out things like satisfaction surveys and understanding how the early adopters are providing feedback, and if you have the opportunity to make pivots or improve the process as you go along. Finally, you want to make sure you're reinforcing that adoption plan over time. So making sure you continue to share best practices or early successes and making sure you're reinforcing those development skills or the value that you're aiming to see based on that clear definition of success throughout your organization. Finally, best practices to generate awareness and spark excitement. So these are just a few of the tactics that we've seen land well with customers looking to adopt Microsoft Teams to really get the communication and engagement started within their organization. So first of all, it doesn't have to be just one communication. We definitely recommend a variety of tactics because everybody works differently. So you want to make sure that you're appealing in various ways, whether it's through posts on a self-help Yammer network or specific communications through direct reports or managers to their direct reports, or targeted email communications for those who might just work more traditionally through email. So painting that what's in it for me and tailoring it specifically to your company and culture so that it lands well with the end users and they understand why the change is being made. Engagement events. So this is an opportunity to really kick off that change with a bang. We typically host things like excitement days or training days. So these are opportunities to combine your IT organization with your champions network, making sure that it's taking a physical presence in the space with things like banners or leaflets, demo booths, or targeting a frequently traverse space like a cafeteria or foyer. This is a great opportunity to partner with. If you have a customer success manager, we have what's called Excite Day kits that we can provide additional swag and support for those kickoff events to really drive excitement within your organization. Go to the next slide. All right, so best practices around a communication strategy. You want to make sure that, as I mentioned earlier, that we're really tapping into that what's in it for me mentality and understanding why the change is being made and painting that vision for the end users. So making sure you're speaking directly to your audience and how they can see value out of Microsoft Teams. The mix of activities, like we talked about, there's opportunities to make a physical appeal to via posters or events in the space, but also virtually through things like a Yammer network or a virtual champions network or email to be able to reach through various means. Ensure the activities are tailored towards driving awareness to company and culture. So linking it to the broader message that your company culture is trying to speak to. And Teams is a great opportunity to link into a new and improved way to collaborate and reach each other and improve culture within an organization. All right, you can go to the next one. All right, so finally, resources to learn more. So just wanted to put some baseline resources where if you're considering creating a Teams adoption plan, where you can find, in addition to probably these slides will be posted and Mike's going to share the recording out. These are some of our additional assets through the Microsoft Customer Success Program and our Fast Track team to be able to understand the successful components for Teams adoption and track any changes to the Teams product. All right, so that was all of the slides, and I know that this is the Ask Me Anything component of the event. So Mike, has there been any questions posted so far that we want to address in the chat?
Yeah, so we got quite a few questions. First of all, we do want to give our shout out to London, UK. And so we had, that's the only shout out we've had, but, to those in London, welcome. We thank you for attending. But we do have quite a few questions that people have been posting. Let's see. First, I think you had answered, but it says, where can I find resources for Teams adoption?
Awesome. So I did post in the Teams Adoption Hub, which has a number of resources specific to Teams adoption, but then also in the slide deck, right before the question slide, we had that resources list as well, which covers a number of Teams adoption focused items out of the box that you can leverage.
All right, next, will the slides be available? Yes. So I'll quick answer that. I posted on there. We always we attach the slides, so they'll be up there. Feel free to grab those as well as some additional links at our blog, aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. So you can always find that there. The next question, I think this is going to take a few of us because I think we each have a different insight with Teams being such a broad, expansive piece. But the question was, what are some of the top technical barriers? You mentioned that this is something to overcome. Our IT department always seems to say no. And I think they meant to say, I want to know what their objections might be in advance and how to answer them. Thanks in advance. Would somebody like to take the first swab at that?
So maybe one of our technical specialists might be good for the technical barriers, but in terms of the IT department saying no, one thing that I found is, and I've done this just through the customer success unit, specifically to better understand my customers and how they can see value out of Microsoft Teams, was I actually participated in shadowing days throughout their organization. So got permission to walk alongside different folks as they go through their day and understand how they're collaborating today, and then doing what we call an immersion experience following that to reinvent that, utilizing Microsoft Teams to really hands-on demonstrate where there might be opportunities to save time within a day, or reinvent that collaboration to make sure to make improvements and connect people faster. So that was an opportunity that I was able to perform. utilizing the Microsoft team, but a great, that's really the what's in it for me, going back to that. So kind of painting the vision to the IT team to help understand where we're at today and where that might be re-envisioned with teams might help speak more to the value, the business value, rather than the IT technical barriers. I don't know if that specifically answers that question, but that sometimes is when we get into the mentality of always saying no. Sometimes it's simply an education gap and not knowing, what's in it for them.
Yeah, I was going to say on the technical barriers. From my end, a lot of the pushback that I hear specifically from an IT department is around governance. So I think that it's kind of scary when you release a new tool and a lot of people are saying, oh, well, if I release teams and I allow everyone to create a team, what if there are so many different teams and it becomes unmanageable and I kind of lose control over that? And so I think a lot of it is, again, easing the fears around that, showing the IT department the administrative dashboard, showing them, okay, for specific groups, you can actually assign them specific permissions. When it comes to actually having the teams, like the control over teams, you can have expiration for a team. So if there's inactivity after a while, you can set it to where that team expires automatically. So there's a lot of options there. But I think one of the top pushbacks that we see is around governance resources.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I was just going to kind of add on that not only governance, but then, and I'm sure Pete has a whole bunch around the voice aspect, but on the whole component around security and compliance, we tend to see some orgs, they're very, understandably, we're in HLS, healthcare and life sciences, so we're talking a regulated industry, and a lot of times folks get very uneasy about the IT end, where it's a new entity to them. They're not quite sure, well, how do we handle this with data loss protection and securing the data, making sure things aren't leaking out. And so there's a number of things as far as how to answer them on that. We do have full pieces around with the Trust Center where we're certified for security and compliance, how you can take in a regulated industry and really lock the data, secure the data. The one thing I would say is this, and this is my big pushback, because I've heard this now in a couple of customer meetings this week. There tends to be within some IT orgs a tendency to want to lock the application or aspects of it down versus securing the data. And the idea is because that's how they've done things in the past. So for example, 3 times this week I've heard this, orgs who wanted to, as sites were provisioned, since they were going to have external access enabled or for being able to invite guests, they were looking to lock down the SharePoint and have that not guest accessible. Well, then you're crippling the product, right? And what it does, and what it sometimes takes is, hey, I need to look and reorient a new way of looking at things and show them how through things like using data loss protection, things like Azure information protection and others, we can secure the data, right? So that you don't have bad things happening, whether malicious or unintentional, right? Where somebody might do something, but still give people the freedom to be able to collaborate and not cripple the experience. And so I think that's a huge thing. We love to talk to customers about it. Sometimes it can be very fun. I had to take a nap after one the other day after 5 hours straight of that, but those are definitely the kind of conversations we want to have. So I would say it's not just you answering them. There's certainly resources you can point them to, but get your Microsoft team involved. And I know, Pete, you've got some input, I'm sure, around the voice and video pieces.
Yeah, I mean, practical experience has shown us to date that really a lot of the heavy lift is around, end user training and change management. The technology is relatively manageable on a certain level. That said, the biggest blockers I've really seen, are network preparedness. If you're going to take advantage of audio and video in Teams, as well as if you're going to use team meetings to ensure that your room systems are able to, have a seamless join experience, So those have been the real two things, sort of room readiness and network readiness. And that is one of the reasons why when we talk about the crawl, walk, run scenario with migrating from, say, Skype to Teams, maybe it might make sense for your organization to have, meetings be a focus on a second phase of your Teams push to your users. Until, give yourself a little bit more runway to get your rooms straight or your network straight. So those are really the two things. And those are the two scenarios we've seen, customers take those actions where maybe they will put a certain feature onto a secondary or a tertiary phase until their network is ready. But to date, I really think that from my experience, if the user is prepared and knows what's going on, then all of those other technical things, we can meet those. The biggest challenge is just making sure that users have a good experience at the end of the day, and that they're happy to use it, and happy with Microsoft and happy with their IT team, which, come on, doesn't happen all the time. So if we can pull it off, we should.
Excellent. Sam, did you want to take the next couple of questions? Tee them up.
Yeah. So the next one, it looks like Pete has already responded, but just so that the rest of the group sees it. When booking a meeting room through Teams, how can I add attributes to every meeting room, like AV facilities available, screen or projector available, conference phone available? So Pete posted a resource for like resource accounts for Teams rooms. Oh, he's saying resource accounts for Teams rooms differ for on-prem, Exchange, and online. So he posted a link there for details, but I don't know, Pete, if you want to do like a high level.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, the Microsoft, the Teams meeting rooms, they use Exchange resource accounts. So there's some guidance there on how to set them up appropriately. So it'd be more along the lines of looking at what options are available within those resource accounts to maybe add some additional attribute information. I would have to look specifically for Exchange resource account documentation on being able to add, custom attributes associated with that room. Off the top of my head, I don't know about adding anything custom. But otherwise, anyone and everyone should follow the document that I posted in there from docs.microsoft.com to understand how to appropriately configure the resource accounts for meeting rooms. But as a follow-up, we can see what information we can find to add specific or custom attributes when booking a room. The other thing that just off the top of my head, honestly, I haven't thought about Exchange resource accounts in a little while, so it's a little bit, little bit dusty up there. But the other thing you could potentially do is per resource account, you can have a mail tip. So if you had something specific, if you could put a mail tip in there. But we can follow up on that one when we post something later.
Well, thanks, Pete. The next one is coming in. Who should lead the rewards and recognition? Is this from IT or communications or another group? And so I can take like a high level, and then Allison, I know you probably have much more experience in this, but in terms of the rewards and recognition in any of these adoption practices, I think that the key is that all of the groups should be aligned, right? But the question is, who exactly should lead it? So from what I've seen in the change management is that there should be a project group created specifically for the product rollout, and that they should absolutely have executive sponsorship, but there should be a group who is leading the rewards and recognition for it as a part of the success metrics for the rollout. So yes, they're like coordinating with IT and communications to really get the word out there, but they're the ones taking the lead on the logistics in terms of rollout. But Allison, definitely would turn to you for details.
Yeah, I would mirror the alignment that you're recommending there, Sam. So just going back to the rewards and recognition and making sure you're transparent and consistent. It really doesn't matter who leads it. It's important to just designate who is going to be leading it and making sure you're consistent in that delivery. So understanding who the program group is that is responsible for rewards and recognition, setting those aspects into place to post guidelines and communicate it to your end users, and then following through to encourage and empower them to take action and then reward them for that action.
Cool. And it looks like, Allison, you already answered the next question, but we have a person that is an all-in-one person serving several roles to deploy teams in a global org. And so as a champion manager, do you have a checklist of activities that should occur? And so Allison posted a list of the champions program guide that you can leverage directly in the Q&A chat for everybody.
Yep, absolutely. And on the last slide of that program guide, it actually does go through a program checklist specifically for you. So that being to find enthusiastic champions, you want the right network of people speaking and advocating for the team's product internally to your organization. The secondary piece being to build a Yammer group for your champions, or creating some sort of forum where people can self-service and get in communication with those champions and to share best practices. The third being to provide materials to support the champion. So making sure you're educating and training those champions so that they can be valuable within the businesses that they're working within. Fourth, ensuring a regular rhythm for discussion to make sure that the champions know what's working, what's not working, that they can share amongst themselves best practices, as well as keep in contact and prevent any sort of lethargy, so that they're feeling like they don't have the latest information and they can't advocate appropriately within the organization. Designing a program to engage and recognize their efforts. So that's that rewards and recognitions piece that we were talking about earlier. Fifth is to communicate to individuals about their role. So they have to understand, why were they selected to be a champion? What are you expecting of them as a champion? And then making sure they execute to make that champion network effective. Incorporating Microsoft 365 training resources into your internal training site. This is obviously optional, but we found it very helpful to not recreate the wheel and leverage things just like this Champions program and many of the resources we have on the Teams Adoption Hub into your internal training site, so people have that available to them. And then lastly, to create a contest between departments to encourage people to interact with their champions. That's the last item on that program checklist.
Okay, thank you. I think that's actually a great segue, because the next question is asking, what are some of the common challenges with maintaining that champions network once you do get through that checklist?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really making sure that the champions remain engaged and are effective. So when we go back to that checklist, finding a means to keep them in contact with one another, in contact with the end users who might need to be engaging them and learning from them, and then making sure that they are aware of the latest feedback so that they can provide the right type of expertise. And then finally, the incentive and rewards and recognition to make sure that they feel that their efforts are being recognized.
Cool. Okay, and the next one is there an easy way to request a team through a form? We don't want a team sprawl. Yes.
So That's great. So this is Mike. Great question. And the short answer is yes. So you can turn off self-provisioning, and there's several ways though then how you can address that. So, number one, very simply, you could set up, a form in SharePoint, right? A SharePoint web-based form you could attach to your intranet or your IT or wherever you want to do that, and have it set up so that the IT folks who would be responsible for provisioning it get alerted, and then they can go and manually do that. Number two, you could do that same thing through a Power App that you could actually deploy out. And if you take that a step further, we had a past webcast, and it's actually now a talk at Ignite, where they talk about doing selective guest access, but through an automated process with a form and all that. So that it allows users to go in, fill out, and it takes advantage of Power Apps and Flow. So it's a little more elegant, sophisticated piece, but then it adds the component of even if it has guest access or not enabled for it. But then finally, the last thing is we do have some great partners, third-party partners that facilitate this. So, one great example, and I talk about them all the time, is AvePoint. AvePoint has a very robust solution for allowing very granular and selective access to teams, but then also front-ending it and providing a whole form-based entity. But then you set up rules as to how those teams will be processed, handled, who will have access, their level of permission within them. They get deep using the APIs to actually affect a lot of that and give you a lot of options so you don't have to manually configure them. But yeah, absolutely, you could set up a form, and I do know of a number of customers. Having said that, people like to self-provision, and we do too. I don't know if anybody else has anything there.
I think you covered it. I think the next one's for Pete. Someone says, one of my customers has brought me in to deploy Teams, but they also want to roll out Zoom for better call quality. Am I missing something here?
No, I don't think you're missing anything. I think maybe your customer might be missing something. I mean, I would highly recommend doing a quality check on Teams. We have quite good Teams audio and video quality. We have very good reports and analytics to show you the quality of your experience within Teams. You're already looking to use Teams. You can be an implementer instead of an integrator, and I don't mean integrate Zoom with Teams. I meant, just managing multiple platforms that kind of step on each other's toes a little bit. So I could go on and on. So no, I don't think you're missing anything. And, we also have customers that use Zoom. We don't throw rocks in glass houses. They have, a good product. But really, we're very bullish that if people actually try Teams meetings, they'll be pleasantly surprised. If you had a bad experience on Skype and you're judging Teams based on Skype, then don't do that, right? Because look at Teams as an opportunity Microsoft has taken to do all of the things that we wanted to do with Skype, but actually, couldn't, and bring it to fruition in Teams. Whether it's the mobile experience, the plugin-less browser experience, the definite increased quality. So, I would challenge anyone to really look at Teams again. But in the meantime, for that specific customer, they can still get a lot of great benefit from Teams, because you can't take advantage of the same type of collaboration within Zoom that you can within Teams. It's just not there, right? So I would encourage that customer to focus on those areas of Teams. And Once they have good experience with the collaboration, Teams channels, etc., users are going to naturally ask the question, why aren't we doing, meetings and other things in here? It'll come. It'll just rise to the top automatically.
Cool. The next one is Tom is asking, which shout out from Kentucky. I'm also from Kentucky, Tom, but he is asking, he loves Teams so far, woohoo, but one issue he has is when he's on his laptop and not connected to Wi-Fi, he can't use it. Anything in the works to get it working offline?
Yeah, well, so this is Mike. So the answer is no, but we have a big but there, right? So the answer, I mean, it's a cloud-based service, right, with real-time collaboration and communication. Having said that, mobile. So I have Teams, and I know Pete will chime in on this. I mean, all of us could chime in on this. I've got Teams on my iPhone, and it absolutely flipping rocks, right? So I can get in there, I can chat, I can share messages, images, files. I mean, I can do basically everything from my iPhone that I can do from my desktop here. And it's just an incredible experience. So it's not that you're disabled when you're not on your company network or at your home office. We're providing the best experience for that on the go. If you do want to take it one step further, you might have seen our Microsoft Surface announcements, and we now have devices with LTE enabled, so you can have data and you can have, again, that continuous connection. But really the story is, whether you got Android, iOS, or whatever, when you're offline and mobile, you can still get all the richness and access everything. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that or.
No, absolutely. When I wake up in the morning, I get out my phone, look at my Teams app, and see like what I have for the day, right? So I utilize mobile a ton, which I would encourage for you, Tom. Yeah. Okay, so next one. So we have a bunch of resources that Allison and Mike have given Jess, but Jess is asking, does Microsoft have any training resources we can deploy in our organization, like video or tips documents for Teams? So we have a plethora of resources. Allison linked to on-demand live Teams training or the Teams quick start guide that's in the Q&A there for you. And then Mike also mentioned Microsoft Learning Pathways as well.
Yeah, so it's me again. I didn't see Allison jumping, so I'm going to jump real quick. It's one of my favorite things. So if you're looking for deployable resources, Allison gave some great ones. But talk to your Microsoft folks. We have a solution called Microsoft Learning Pathways. It is a complete SharePoint based solution portal that you can deploy in your environment. You own the rights to it, and it has training for everything around Office 365. And then your org can turn on or off what you do or don't want to use, and then you can even customize it with your own custom pieces. But it's a great way to get jump started. It has, for your end users, a whole bunch of training around Teams itself, in addition to everything else, Office 365.
Cool. And then next one is, what level of training do you recommend for champions, and how many sessions should they need? So Allison, I know you already responded, but if you want to go over your recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. So the mantra for Champions Network is to train them early and train them often. So the initial kickoff for a Champions program should focus on being a very formal onboarding training. So making sure that they deeply understand the client and that they're able to utilize Teams in such a way that they feel comfortable sharing it with others. But from that kickoff, it's helpful to use a monthly meeting as a touch point to understand what's working and what's not with their work with other end users, as well as keep them abreast with any changes, or if you've added new functionality to your team's rollout since the initial kickoff training, you can bring them up to speed on the latest tips and tricks, as well as share best practices.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Okay, we have a couple. These are great. Thanks for being so engaged, everyone. Keep asking away. We have Damon who's asking, can we lock out editing for people within our organization to not be able to edit a wiki while still being a part of the team? I don't know, Mike, you want to take that one?
Let me re-look at that just so I'm getting, can we lock out editing for people within our org to not be able to wiki? So here's a quick short answer. First of all, I'm just going to say this, the wiki that is built in, turn it off. Do yourself, it's not a true wiki. There's going to be some action with that coming. Don't use it. I'll throw that out. That's my personal opinion. I have very strong feelings about wikis, and this is not a true wiki. I had to do a whole post on how to recover your quote unquote wiki if somebody accidentally removed the tab. So what I would recommend is this. Number one, if you're looking to do a controlled wiki, and I think this is what you're talking about, a controlled set of resources, then do that separately, right? Actually, SharePoint has a very robust wiki system where you can do all the different wiki markup language that you're familiar with doing. You can then set controls on it, do it outside of Teams, do a separate, SharePoint. You can do an enterprise wiki, for example, and you can lock down who can see it, who can do what with it. Once you've done that, now it's a reusable entity across multiple teams, right? It's just a tab that you add. You can even create it as an application very quickly, where you can then add that and make it available as a tab application for your various teams. And I've showed a couple of orgs how to do that. But anytime we're talking about creating a controlled instance, a records management, right? We have a few hands that touch and many hands that view. And then it's potentially going to be used across multiple things. I would build that outside of Teams and then leverage it within Teams, right? So you pull it in just like any other application that you might add, but that way you're treating it the proper way that you want to, and you can do that. I do not recommend doing that and starting to mix up going to the underlying SharePoint though underneath the team and starting to mix and match permissions. I think then you're getting away from the intent of what a team is, than that it's a collaboration sharing. It's more free form. So those instances where you want to do granular permissions and those things, treat that as application. Think about that, treat it outside of it, and then pull it into Teams. And we have tabs that exist to do that, or you could create for that specific instance, a homegrown application you make available to the org. And lastly, you could even, if it's something that applies to all the teams, you could put it in the left-hand nav. I think I exhausted that one.
Cool. Okay, a couple more here then. This one's around eDiscovery and compliance. Are there any best practices or guidelines for addressing these challenges? It looks like in particular they have concerns around Teams chat retention, advanced eDiscovery of user on legal hold, the pilot user community is thriving to make the most out of Teams on the other side, and are waiting on us to release controls to allow Teams integration with the other Office 365 apps and services. So this seems like it's like a combination of a lot of different factors here.
Yeah. So this is something I get asked about a lot. So I'll give you first my quick 2 cents on the whole data retention with conversations, retention policy. If you do not have an absolute drop dead requirement that absolutely we need to expire conversations, don't. You're going to frustrate your users because that's one of the key values of conversations and chat in Teams is the fact it's searchable, right? You have persistence, and that's by design. That's been by user request. It's not accidental that we're doing that. It's not accidental. That's one of the key features in some of the competitive platforms that we compete with Teams. So when you do that, you're going to negatively impact your users. So you really need to think very hard and fast. We have ways using data loss protection to ensure that the data within a conversation or chat is not sensitive and doesn't violate a company policy. The keys of the kingdom aren't getting out of. So again, it's kind of, do we need to expire those, or do we need to ensure that the people aren't inadvertently doing something they shouldn't in there? So I would think long and hard about that. Having said that, we do have some guided recommended best practices for implementation. A lot of it depends on the industry that you're in, and the regulations that you're subject to. So here in healthcare and life sciences, we deal with HIPAA and a number of other common core things that that impact our customers. But financial services, it varies industry by industry. But I would say that at a baseline, looking at some basic data loss protection policies that you can apply against Teams, and that also you work with for SharePoint, for Exchange. The same goes for setting up things with Azure information protection. There's a lot of different safeguards you can put into place. And start with the basics. Don't overthink this. Make sure you're doing what you need to do out the gate, and you'll refine as you go. And again, I think Allison and Samantha elegantly talked about in the beginning, crawl, walk, run. Don't lock down everything. Figure out what's the least restrictive that you can do within your given industry and address it that way. But again, there's a lot of tools already at hand. The one thing to keep in mind, and the beauty of it is, it's the same tools that you can use for Teams, that you can use for SharePoint, for OneDrive, for Exchange. And so, we have a holistic look at all of those and being able to apply. And keep in mind, again, Teams is really just a different way of experiencing some of those existing services. So this is nothing new. People have been having these conversations in the past. So take a look at it and then engage, your Microsoft. I'd say the biggest thing is engage your Microsoft account teams to make sure you're doing it properly. I did have a customer this week who they were having issues because they put an Exchange policy for one of their policies they put into place around Exchange and communications and it wasn't DLP, but they were using Intune for conditional access. They put an Exchange policy in effect that affected their users being able to access Teams from the client when they were not on the company network. So, work with your Microsoft folks. We can help you make sure you're instituting the policies properly, and I think you'll be a lot happier with the results.
Cool, and thanks, Mike. And I know Allison has a hard stop at 1, so Allison, thank you so much for joining us. And we do have a couple more questions that we will go over, but anything you'd like to add?
No, thanks for having me, Sam. And this was a really great event. If there's any additional Teams adoption or end user preparedness questions, feel free to send them my way.
Awesome, thanks so much. Cool, so we'll go on to the next couple of questions. So someone asked, do you recommend any third-party quality analytics and reporting? So Pete has posted a lot about our call analytics and call quality dashboard. It's pretty awesome if you want to check it out. I don't know, Pete, if you want to add anything there. Okay.
It's on mute.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm typing away to Damon. There he is.
Yeah, CQD version 3 has a lot of great updates to it. It's a lot faster. A lot more information is in it. Has APIs so you can build Power BI dashboards. And that if anyone is listening is going to Ignite, there will be an Ignite session around CQD version 3. The documentation was updated just last week, which is the last link that I put in the Q&A chat. And the website is cqd.teams.microsoft.com.
Okay, and then I think our last question that we have is, do you have a pack of examples that outline modern workplace experiences compared to traditional working habits, like emails versus chat, meetings versus channel chat? You want something that resonates to a user and makes them feel empowered. So yes, we can post along with this. We have a whole, Teams user story of where the market is going in terms of, the workplace being much more mobile, everyone having to connect virtually and needing to have all of that in one place for you. So as soon as the users don't see Teams as just another tool, they see it as a way to interface with all of the previously disparate tools that they had to use, it definitely turns the light bulbs on there. So yeah, we can definitely share that out afterwards. I think it's really powerful to be able to tell that story. Cool. And with that,
I've had a whole back channel conference.
oh,
So
yes.
I just want to quickly, talking with Damon, who had asked about the whole wiki piece, and he replied back. His first one was ouch, and they said I've been using it a lot. And so a couple of things, and he was asking about using the SharePoint and easy ways to migrate. So yeah, so number one, you could copy and paste. The other thing, Damon, is consider this. If this is what you're wanting to do is provide like content and resources and stuff just for that team or channel, then certainly doing something that's just for that team or channel, it's totally cool. If you're looking to do something you apply across multiples, that's when I would say do it outside of it. Otherwise, the other thing that's a great tool just for folks in general, right, that I would advocate using instead of the wiki that you see out of the box is OneNote. So recently, although you don't get a tab when you instantiate your team, you'll notice that when you go to add a OneNote tab, there's already one that's been generated now. And when we first launched, that was not the case. So, you can certainly, I would advocate starting with a OneNote for something that's particular that channel or that team. And then, if you do have existing content, you can quick copy and paste it. The benefit of OneNote, you can take that offline and synchronize.
All right, I think that is all of the questions that we have.
Very cool. So we want to thank everybody for attending. Very lively session, and we thank you for all that. I would say, there will be some announcements. I do have a very pertinent one for Teams coming up November 18th. I'm going to hopefully get to it today, posting the links and all that for it. But on the 18th, we will have a special session on creating Microsoft Teams templates that include applications built within them, include content, being able to do a very robust rollout of Teams, and being able to create a team and create a true template, not just placeholders, and how to do all that. So that's going to be coming up on November 18th. And I've been contacted by the Microsoft Technology Center. They actually have some sessions that they want to run as well. So stay tuned. We have many more live coming. If you have requests for content that you'd love to see us cover, just let us know. And that's it for the third part in our AMA series. So for today, this is Mike Giannotti with Sam
Brown.
And Peter Nello. Yep.
And we want to wish you all a great day. And remember, It's Il Natale della Pasta. It's World Pasta Day. So get out there and eat some pasta. Mikey says so. All right. Have a great one, everybody.
Have a good one.
Take care.